Y'all, for years the streets have whispered about one closed-door meeting that never made the blogs the way it should have. 2020, 50 Cent King Von. One room. No cameras. No cosigns on Instagram. No public photos. Just two men from completely different eras sitting across from each other while the industry was still figuring out how big Von was about to become. Some say it was pure business. Some say it was a warning. Others swear something was said in that room that changed the way both men moved afterward. And now, years later, the details that were supposed to stay buried are starting to surface through old associates, quiet admissions, and pieces of conversations that were never meant to leave those four walls. What really went down when 50 Cent sat with King Von in 2020? Why did neither man ever fully address it publicly? And why do certain people who are close to that moment still go quiet the second the topic comes up? This ain't just another industry story. This is the kind of meeting that sits at the center of legacy, power, and unanswered questions. Hold on tight. We're going inside that room. The year was 2020, and King Von was moving at a speed most artists only dream about. The streets already knew his name. The internet was catching up fast. Crazy Story had turned him into a narrative force, and every new release felt like another chapter in a book people couldn't put down. At the same time, 50 Cent was deep into building his television empire, turning real street stories into primetime power. Two different generations, two different levels of the game. And somehow, their paths crossed in a private setting that almost nobody talked about while it was happening. According to people familiar with the situation, the meeting wasn't random. It wasn't a casual pull-up-and-chop-it-up moment. It was arranged, quiet, controlled. The kind of sit-down where phones stay in pockets and the only people in the room are the ones who need to be there. Sources who have spoken off-record over the years describe the energy as respectful but heavy. 50 Cent, already a veteran who had survived wars both in music and in business, sitting across from a young Chicago artist whose entire brand was built on raw, unfiltered storytelling. Von wasn't green, but he also wasn't yet the posthumous legend the world would later turn him into. In that room, he was still very much alive, still rising, still calculating his next moves. What has always fueled the speculation is how little both sides said afterward. 50 Cent has spoken about Von multiple times since his death, praising his talent, acknowledging his impact, even connecting himself to conversations about Von's legacy. But the specific 2020 meeting? It stays in the shadows. No detailed breakdown. No, this is what we talked about interview. Just occasional references that feel carefully measured. That silence is exactly why the story refuses to die. In the culture, when two major names meet behind closed doors and then say almost nothing, people start filling in the blanks. Some claim the conversation was purely about music and possible collaboration. Others believe it went deeper, into the realities of the streets, the cost of the lifestyle, and the difference between telling the story and becoming the story. A few voices close to the Chicago side have suggested that Von walked out of that room with a different look in his eye, like something had been said that stuck with him. Whether those claims are accurate or just the internet doing what it does, the timing matters. 2020 was a pivotal year. The world was locked down. The music industry was shifting. And Von was in the middle of a rapid ascent that would be cut short only months later in Atlanta. Any private conversation he had with a figure as calculated as 50 Cent was always going to carry extra weight once he was gone. Fans have spent years trying to piece together the timeline. Who set the meeting up? Was it through mutual industry connections? Was it 50 reaching out after hearing the music? Was it someone from Von's camp looking for guidance from a man who had already turned street credibility into generational wealth? Every version of the story has its believers. What remains consistent across most accounts is that the meeting happened, it was private, and it left an impression. One associate who has spoken carefully about those days described the room as all business with an undercurrent. No loud energy, no flexing, just two men measuring each other. In the weeks that followed, Von continued his run. The music kept hitting, the narrative kept growing, and 50 Cent kept building his own lane. On the surface, nothing dramatic changed. But in the culture of hip-hop, surface-level quiet after a closed-door meeting is rarely the full story. Years later, when 50 began speaking more openly about Von's talent and the potential of his story, fans went back to that 2020 meeting with new eyes. Was this just an older artist recognizing a younger one? Or was there something said in that room that made 50 feel a deeper connection to Von's legacy once he was no longer here to speak for himself? The questions only multiplied, and the people who were actually in or around that room have mostly chosen not to give clear answers. The more time that passed after King Von's death, the more the 2020 meeting took on a different meaning. What might have been a standard industry conversation while both men were moving in their respective lanes started to feel, in hindsight, like a moment loaded with unanswered weight. Fans began treating it like a missing chapter. Every time 50 Cent posted about Von, or referenced Chicago drill, or spoke on the power of real storytelling, comment sections filled with the same demand. Tell us what y'all talked about in 2020. The requests were rarely answered directly. Instead, 50 would pivot to broader points about talent, authenticity, and the business. That pattern only deepened the curiosity. On the Chicago side, the reaction has always been more complicated. Some of Von's day ones have expressed respect for 50's longevity and business moves. Others have remained cautious, viewing any major industry figure through the lens of who benefits after an artist is gone. The meeting itself became a symbol in those conversations, proof that Von was already on the radar of people who understood how to turn street narratives into long-term empires. What really fuels the ongoing discussion is the lack of concrete details. No full recording, no detailed interview from either side, no mutual confirmation of the exact topics. In the absence of clarity, theories thrive. One version that has circulated for years claims the conversation touched on the difference between living the stories and selling them. 50 Cent has built a career on turning real experiences into content that reaches far beyond the streets. Von's music was already doing something similar, but from a much rawer, more immediate place. If that subject came up, it would explain why some people close to Von later described him as more focused on the business side of his career in the months that followed. Another version suggests the meeting was shorter and more observational, 50 sizing up the new generation, Von taking mental notes from a man who had already survived the exact storms he was walking into. In that telling, nothing explosive was said. The power was in the quiet exchange of energy between two people who both understood the cost of the lives they rapped about. Then there are the darker interpretations, the ones that treat every private meeting as potential foreshadowing. Those theories tend to appear whenever new leaks or documentaries get rumored. They connect the 2020 sit-down to later conversations about Von's story being told on screen, about who controls the narrative, and about whether the people still here are protecting the legacy or packaging it. Those claims remain unproven, but they refuse to disappear because the original meeting was never fully demystified. What is clear is that after Von's death, 50 Cent's public posture toward his catalog and impact carried a note of recognition that felt personal to many fans. Whether that came from one conversation in 2020 or from simply studying the music is something only the people in that room can know for certain. The silence from those people is its own character in this story. In hip-hop, silence after a major name dies can mean respect. It can also mean strategy. And when the meeting in question involves someone as deliberate as 50 Cent, fans tend to assume the latter until proven otherwise. Meanwhile, the culture kept moving. Posthumous releases kept Von's voice in rotation. Documentaries and deep dive videos kept re-examining his final year. And every so often, the 2020 meeting would resurface in a podcast or a comment thread, still unresolved. That unresolved quality is exactly why the story still hits. Because in a genre built on testimony and first-hand accounts, a closed-door conversation between two major figures that stays mostly sealed feels incomplete. Fans don't just want the highlight. They want the texture of the room. Who spoke first, what the energy felt like, whether anything was promised, whether anything was warned. None of those details have been handed over cleanly. And the longer they stay missing, the more powerful the meeting becomes in the imagination of the culture. Looking back now, the 2020 meeting between 50 Cent and King Von sits in a strange place in hip-hop history. It wasn't a publicized cosign. It wasn't a recorded podcast moment. It wasn't even a widely photographed industry event. It was quiet. And in this culture, the quiet moments are often the ones that linger longest. For many fans, the meeting has become a symbol of the gap between the streets and the boardroom. Vaughn represented a generation that was still deep in the realities they rapped about. 50 represented what happens when those realities are successfully converted into lasting power, media control, and financial independence. Putting those two energies in the same room was always going to create speculation, especially once one of them was no longer alive to speak on it. The years since have only layered more meaning onto that single conversation. Every time 50 has spoken about the importance of owning your story, fans have wondered whether some of that perspective was shared directly with Vaughn. Every time conversations arise about posthumous projects, documentaries, or the business of a fallen artist's catalog, the 2020 meeting gets dragged back into the discussion as possible context. None of it has been confirmed in clean, detailed terms. And that lack of confirmation is what keeps the narrative dangerous. Because without a clear record, every new claim can attach itself to the original meeting and feel plausible. On the ground in Chicago, the subject still carries mixed feelings. Some see any connection to 50 as validation of how far Vaughn's talent reached while he was still here. Others remain protective, wary of outsiders shaping the final chapters of a story that still feels personal to the people who knew him. That tension has never fully resolved, and the closed-door nature of the original meeting makes it easy for both sides to project their own meaning onto it. What cannot be denied is the impact Vaughn left in a short time. The meeting, whatever its true content, happened at a moment when his momentum was undeniable. He wasn't asking for permission to exist in the game. He was already forcing the industry to pay attention. Sitting with someone of 50's stature at that stage of his career was, at minimum, a recognition of that force. Yet recognition and understanding are not the same thing. And the culture still doesn't know which one took place in that room. As more time passes, the risk is that the meeting becomes pure mythology, a story that grows larger because the facts stay small. That process has already begun. Newer fans who discovered Vaughn after his death often hear about the 50 Cent conversation as if it was a pivotal turning point, even though the public record remains thin. Older fans who followed the rise in real time remember how little was said while both men were still operating in the same window of time. The truth, as it often does in these cases, probably sits somewhere in the middle. A real conversation happened. It carried some weight, and then life and death, and the industry moved on without handing the public a full transcript. Still, the questions remain because the stakes feel high. When an artist like King Von leaves behind a catalog built on testimony, every private interaction with a powerful figure becomes part of the larger story the culture tells about him. The 2020 meeting is now part of that story, whether the full details ever surface or not. In the end, the room itself has become more important than any single quote that may or may not have been said inside it. It represents the moment when two different versions of power briefly occupied the same space, one still rising through raw narrative, the other already expert at controlling the narrative. What really happened in that room may never be fully known, but the fact that we are still asking years later says everything about how heavy that moment still feels. Do you think that 2020 meeting between 50 Cent and King Von was just business? Or was something deeper said in that room that still hasn't come to light? And should moments like this stay private? Or does the culture deserve to know what was exchanged while Vaughn was still here? Drop your thoughts below. Like the video, subscribe, and hit the bell, because every time new details surface on this story, we're going to break it down. This one is far from over.